This is so touchy, really. I just touch it once and there it is. No, I got the right one. It's called the law of what? Marriage. Woo, did they make a law about marriage back then? Yeah, they sure did. And we want to see what it says. So let's start out with Deuteronomy 22:13 through 14. If any man takes a wife and goes into her, that means he consummated the relationship, and afterwards he hates her. I didn't like this girl. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. Yeah. And then he charges her with shameful conduct, meaning I don't think this is her first time. Okay? And brings an evil name on her, and says, I took this woman, and when I came to her, I found she was not a virgin. Okay. Well, the number one thing that comes to my mind is, how do you know? How are you going to know that? Interesting, huh? Then the father of the young woman, because did you know it was the father's responsibility to make sure that the girls stayed pure? He was the head of the family, right? And you know, of course, in the Muslim community, what happens if a daughter, maybe even that, and they might kill her for that. But it's the young woman and her mother. The father, young woman, and her mother will take and show the evidence of the young woman's virginity. Now, I thought that was kind of strange, too. To the elders of the city in the gate. And the young woman's father will say to the elders, I gave my daughter to this man as a wife, and he hates her. And lo, he has charged her with shameful conduct, saying, I found your daughter not to be a virgin. Again, I say, how do you know? And yet, these are the evidence of my daughter's virginity. Evidence. And they will spread the cloth before the elders of the city. So this is my understanding. I read a lot on this because I'm trying to figure this out. They had a linen cloth, and when the young lady had her period, they wore cloths back then, and they would keep that cloth. And if anyone called them to say, no, she's not a virgin, then they would bring forth this cloth, and that supposedly was proof that she was. Okay. I understand that that berry would be gone if you had a period as well. That would no. How about if you used a tampon? No. Really? You guys are teaching me now. Yeah. But anyway, they never really used this law, from what I understand. It, and it was only there because of the hard-heartedness of the Israelites. And we'll see that here in just a minute. Albert Poole said this law is seldom or never put into execution, as the Jews note, and seems to be made more for terror and caution. In other words, it's going to keep them from doing what they shouldn't do. It's more there to make people afraid, right? Caution to husband and wife, and really other laws have been in like cases. From what I read, they're saying that there really isn't a way to tell. I know what you guys are saying, but right, 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 right. Her parents. They, no, I know. Right, right. Yeah. Right,
open.
right,
It just says so. Look what that does to her,
right.
you know.
Her reputation.
Right. Yeah, and so they put in a stipulation for that, right? So it said, and the elders of that city will take that man and chastise him, right? And they will fine him 100. So if I made the accusation, and the elders said no, they brought the linen cloth, and they said no, she was a virgin. Then the guy gets fined 100 shekels of silver, which is quite a bit of money. They don't put him to death, which is too bad, because that would have really limited them doing that. So 100 shekels of silver was twice the normal dowry. The normal dowry for a girl was 50 shekels of silver, so it was double that. So and she gave him to the father a young woman, because he has brought an evil name on the Virgin of Israel, and she will be his wife, and he can't divorce her. That's what the put away means. He can't divorce her all his days. So he's stuck. So now they're both miserable, yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so it's interesting, huh? This law developed into a law in Jewishness where you could really divorce a woman for any reason. Because remember where it said he hated her? So it morphed into, I can hate my wife for any reason and get a divorce. Of course, back then, did you know women could not divorce a man? Yeah. You'd be in big trouble. You just get stoned. Right? But Jesus, he said the Pharisees also came to him testing, saying, is it lawful for a man to put his wife away for every cause? In other words, he's saying, can you divorce your wife for any reason at all? Because Moses told them they could have a certificate of divorce. They had just a handwritten certificate of divorce for any reason at all. God didn't say that. Moses said that. That's kind of what it morphed into. Anyway, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for any cause? And he answered and he said to them, have you not read that he who made them at the beginning, when's the beginning? Creation, right? Who made them at creation? He made them male and female. Let's end the gender talk. God made them male and female. He didn't make them male, female, and whatever you want to be, right? He He did not do that. He made them male and female, and he said, for this cause, a man will leave his father and his mother, for this cause, this marriage, this union, and he will cleave to his wife, and they two will be one flesh. And that's what we forget about, even in the church, that when a man and a woman marry, they become one flesh. We are the same. Everything that I am, Marcy is. Everything that Marcy is, I am. We have meshed. We have the same bank account. We have the same job. We have the same. I mean, everything's this. We're one, and everything we work as one. There's nothing that is mine and not hers.
You had to get him on the phone to say it's okay for you to
We
discuss
still
with
do.
her. Yeah, it
drives
didn't
me
used to
crazy.
be that way.
Yeah. That drives me crazy. And I always get on there and I said, she's my wife. She can do whatever she tells you to do. I mean, it just drives me crazy.
To be that way.
Yeah. But literally, God says the two become one. And that's how we need to see marriage, as God sees it. Because in creation, that's what he made it. The two become one flesh. They cleave to each other. That word cleave means they're intertwined. In fact, it'd be like you can't even, if you pulled them apart, you would tear part of the, if you ever put glue on something, glue on both sides, and you try to take it off, and both sides, something comes off. That's kind of what it is. Therefore, what God has joined together, let no man put asunder. That is Jesus' law, which goes far above the law of marriage that Moses gave. He said, understand that God, in his original creation, created them male and female. And the two become one flesh. One. Not two separate beings. They're a unit, they are one. Okay? And he went on to say, then they said to him, then why did Moses command? Now who commanded it? Moses. Why did Moses command a writing of divorcement? A little paper that you sign. Is that what happens in divorces today? We sign little papers? Yeah. And saying to him, it is lawful for a man to put away his wife for any cause, right? Or he said, I'm reading the other one. He said to them, Moses did it because of the hardness of your hearts. That's why Moses gave it, because you guys are stubborn and all you care about is you. You don't care about the way I made things. And because of the hardness of your hearts he allowed you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning, it was not that way. It was not so, right? And I say to you, now get this, this is Jesus saying this now. And so he says, and I say to you, going way above the law, because especially as believers, we're held to a higher standard. I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for what? Are you guys with me here this morning? Except for fornication. What's fornication? Sex outside of marriage, right? And marries another. Okay, you got this? I divorced my wife. It wasn't because of fornication. And I'm marrying another. Commits what? Adultery. Why? Because the two were one flesh. You got it? And whoever marries her who is put away. Let's say you haven't even been married, but you're going to marry a divorced woman. Commits what? adultery. His disciples said to him, I love the disciples. They said this to him. They said, well, if that's the case of the man is so with his wife, you're better off to not get married. That's what his disciples said. If that's the way it is, you shouldn't even get married, right? And which is, wrong. But that's what he said. And Paul reiterated this. Did you know that in 1 Corinthians, Paul reiterated what Jesus said? He said, listen, as people who are married, we are not supposed to get a divorce. We are just flat out not supposed to get a divorce, right? Unless they're married. But Paul said in 1 Corinthians 7:10-11, and to the married, hold on, I'll get there. This thing is so touchy. All right, 7, 12, and 13, it says, but to the no, that's not the one. I'm missing that one right in between that shape. There it is. Holy moly. All right. And to the married, I command, yet not I, but the Lord. Who's commanding this? The Lord. He said, let not the wife depart from her husband. In other words, let not the wife divorce her husband. But if she does depart, what does she have to do? Or he. It would be the same with he. You could put he or she in there. Let her remain. Why would she have to remain unmarried? Why would he have to remain unmarried if he divorced his wife? Because it would be, according to Jesus, adultery if you did. You are committing adultery. Okay, because the two are one flesh. Okay, let her remain unmarried or be reconciled to her husband, and let not the husband divorce his wife. Same thing. That's God's rule. Don't divorce. Don't divorce. He gave one exception for divorce. Guess what that is? Adultery. That's his exception. He doesn't care if it's 2022. He doesn't care if it's 5000 BC. He doesn't care if it's in Jesus' time. It doesn't matter. The law stays the same. In the beginning, he created them male and female, and the two become one flesh. And what what God has put together, let no man tear apart, right? Or woman, tear apart. That's right. That is the law. This is tough today. You know why this is tough? Because it's so rampant today, and it's rampant in the church. And so when you talk about marriage, you start stepping on people's toes. Right? And luckily for me, I don't care. I'm just going to put out what it says. And then people can do with it what they want. But this is what it says. And to the married, I command not I, but the Lord. This is God's commandments. This is Jesus' commandment on marriage. If you don't like it, don't get married. That's the way I look at it. Yeah, right. Yeah. Which is another form of sin, right? We call fornication. But, did I get the right one, Shafin? I can't even tell. No, it skips one every time. There it is. But to the rest, speak I, not the Lord. Okay, now Paul's going to give his opinion on marriage. If any brother has a wife that doesn't believe, so I'm married to an unbeliever, and she is willing to, or pleased to, or she's okay to dwell with him, to stay, let him not divorce her. Okay? And the woman who has a husband that doesn't believe, and if he's pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. Got it? But, there's always a but in there, isn't there? But if the unbeliever departs, let's say they want out of the marriage, let him depart. A brother or a sister is not under bondage. The law bonds, enslaves us, right? That's what it says all through the New Testament. He's not under bondage in such cases. In other words, there's nothing you can do about it. You're not responsible for it. They left. Okay? But God has called us to peace. For how do you know, O wife, whether you will save your husband? Or how do you know, O man, whether you will save your wife? You don't. And so that was Paul's thoughts on it. He kind of says the same thing. If they want to stay, let them stay. If they don't, there's nothing you can do about it. This marriage thing is really quite important to God because, well, in Timothy, when you're talking about the leadership of the church, okay, one of the first things that comes up is that a bishop, which just means an elder or a pastor, either one, I mean, if it's either, an elder we'll say, because that's really what it means, then must be blameless, the husband of what? One wife. Okay. If I've been divorced and remarried, am I the husband of one wife, or am I the husband of two? I mean, there's a lot that goes into that, right? So we had a big debate in this church over this. Boy, back when I very first became an elder. That's how long ago that was, 30-some years ago. And what that really means. Because you're looking at qualifications to be an elder. And this same, we'll see in a minute, the same qualification is for, well, we can look right now. The same qualification is for deacons as well. This thing is driving me crazy. Where? I don't even know where it's at now. That went like 10 slides ahead. Now I'm at 3:12. That one. Let deacons be the husband of one wife. So you're going to be a deacon, kind of the same thing. So if you're going to be an elder in the church, you're going to be a deacon in the church, a leader in the church, you're supposed to be the husband of one wife. Well, then there's that big debate. What does that mean, the husband of one wife? Most people think that it means you can't have more than one wife at the same time. In other words, because a lot of people, even back in those days, they had multiple wives, right? And leaders in the church should never have multiple wives. Because God originally created them, we go right back to the beginning, male and female. And they cleave and they become one flesh. And that's the way God commanded it. That's the way He set it up. And that's the way it's supposed to be. And so we had this big debate, like I said, here, because we've had a divorced man that wanted to be an elder. And that was quite an interesting time. It boils down to he did not become an elder. Okay? And because of that. Correct. Right. Yeah. Yeah, and so that, yeah, I mean, anyway, that was just one of the many things that you have to go through in church if you're an elder, that you don't like having to do, but you'd have to do it. And so the point is that marriage is very important to God. It's a sacred institution that's set up the way God set it up. It's supposed to be. And the church especially should be showing that. And did you know that the divorce rate in the church is almost the same? Now I'm talking about the whole church. I'm not talking about certain like evangelicals or whatever, but I'm talking about the church is about the same as regular society. And to me, that's very sad. And so Moses made that law so that because of the hardness of the hearts of the Israelites. But other than fornication, because that's what God said way back in Moses' time, he said, other than fornication, there's no reason to get divorced. Okay? But if this thing is true, back to Deuteronomy, and the evidence of virginity is not found for the young woman, and they will bring out the young woman to the door of her house and her father's house, and the men of the cities will, what? Yeah, so that she dies, because she has wrought folly in Israel to play the harlot in her father's house, so you shall put away evil. The whole law that Moses brought to them, that God gave to them, was to put away evil from Israel, because they were God's chosen people, and they are supposed to show the rest of the world how great and wonderful God is. And you can't do that if you're living a sinful, evil life. It just can't happen. And so all these things had to do with putting away evil from the congregation, because once you let one go, then guess what? Then the next one. You let something else go. You let something else go. You let something else go. We talked about a judge today, or not today, but just recently, saying we should allow marriage between anybody if they love each other. It doesn't matter how many. It doesn't matter who. It can be, one man and 10 women. It can be one woman and 5 men. It can be 6 men. It can be 6 women. It doesn't matter, right? It just doesn't matter. So long as they love one another, why shouldn't they get married? Is that not a slap right in the face of what God originally set up? Yeah. So anyway, no. No. That's pretty obvious, right? Yeah. No, sadly, it definitely is not, right? So if a man is found lying with a woman married to a husband, so another woman, then they will stone both of them, right? So if a man is lying with a woman that's married, they both get stoned, right? Until they die. Both the man that lay with the woman and the woman, so you shall, what's that say? Put away evil. That's evil to do that. If a young woman that is a virgin is betrothed to a husband, what's betrothed mean? Engaged, promised. And they, when you got engaged back in their day and in their culture, you were married. You just was a time before you consummated the marriage, but you were considered married, even though you hadn't had relations, right? Anyway, and they is betrothed to a husband, and a man and her find her in the city and lie with her, then you will bring them both out to the gate of that city, and you will stone them with stones so that they die. Both of them. Okay? Even before they're married, but they're considered married. The young woman, because she cried not. In other words, if I'm in the city, and if you got to understand those cities, everyone lived real close together, right? And the man is lying with her, and she isn't screaming out, "Help me, help me, help me. Get away," that kind of stuff. Being in the city, and the man, because he has violated his neighbor's wife, so you shall put away evil from among you. See that over and over again? So you shall put away evil. So you shall put away evil. So you shall put away evil. This stuff is evil in the sight of God. But if a man finds a betrothed young woman in the field, so now I'm out in the country, right? I'm not in the city. And the man force her, what do we call that today? Rape. Yeah, there you go. And lie with her, then the man only that lay with her will die. What did they do with rapists back then? Oh, they killed them. Yeah. But to the young woman you will do nothing. There is in the young woman no sin worthy of death. For as when a man rises against his neighbor and slays him, even so is this matter. God says this is the same as committing murder. That's what he said right there. For he found her in the field, and the betrothed young woman cried, and there was none to save her. You know what happens nowadays is people cry out and everyone walks the other way. You been reading any of those stories? Someone's hurting someone, doing something to them. I'm not going to get involved. I'm just going to walk away. Right? We've been seeing that in the New York subways, in Chicago, in all kinds of places. Because I'm concerned about me. And so we just walk away. If a man finds a young woman that is a virgin who is not betrothed, okay, so she's just single, a single girl, and he lay hold on her and lie with her, and they are found, then the man that lay with her will give to the young woman's father 50 shekels of silver. What does 50 shekels mean? That's a dowry. Okay, and she will be his wife because he has violated her. That's what God considered. Having sex outside of marriage is a violation. Okay? And he may not divorce her all his days. He's stuck. Yeah. And that's what it was if she was single. And he was supposed to do that. Doggone it. If a man entices a maid, I said in Exodus, that is not betrothed and lies with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. If her father utterly refuses to give him, so what this is, I'm going to marry her, and the father refuses to give him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of the virgin. In other words, the father has to pay the guy 50 shekels of silver. So that's the way it was. That's what God thinks of marriage. He holds it in very high esteem. And then they make a law here. This next thing is about something that to me is morally disgusting. And, well, as if it wasn't bad enough committing adultery, but a man will not take his father's wife nor uncover his nakedness. Having sexual relations with your father's wife is not good. Now remember, his wife may not be your mother, especially back then, right? Abram had Sarah, Hagar, Keturah. He had a lot of wives. Jacob had Rachel and Leah and Bilhah and Zilpah. And so you may be attracted to one of your, I guess, would it be stepmom? And your stepmom may not be a whole lot older than you, especially if you were the firstborn, and he didn't have relations with this new wife for 15 years after you were born. And she may only be 15 or 16 when she gets married. Anyway, they call it uncovering your father's nakedness. And in Leviticus it says, and the man that lies with his father's wife has uncovered his father's nakedness. Both of them will surely be put to death. Their blood will be on them. Both the wife and the son were to be killed. You will put away evil. That was the whole purpose of the law, to keep them from doing evil. Well, do you think anything like that ever happened in the Bible? Yeah. Yeah, it did. If I can get to it. And it came to pass when Israel is Jacob, when Israel dwelt in that land, that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine. Now, a concubine, you guys understand the rule of the concubines? A concubine was a wife with none of the standing. In other words, she was a slave, right? So his wife Rachel, which this was Rachel's handmaid, and Reuben, of course, his mom was Leah. Anyway, the concubines, she was a handmaid, she was a servant, and that's what she was treated like. She was not treated like a wife. In the same way where it said Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines, the concubines were servants and never became the status of a wife, even though they were wives in the sense that they had sexual relationships with the husband. If that makes sense. And Israel heard it, but they didn't do anything. So Israel heard it, that this happened, but he didn't do anything. In Genesis, when Jacob was giving the blessings, you remember how he blessed each one of the kids? He went to Reuben first because Reuben was his firstborn. He said, Reuben, you are my firstborn, my might, and the beginning of my strength, the excellency of dignity and the excellency of power. Unstable as water, you shall not excel. How's that for a blessing? Because you went up to your father's bed and you defiled it. He went up to my couch. Okay? Now the sons of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel, for he was the firstborn, but since he defiled his father's bed, his birthright was given away. He was given to the sons of Joseph, I think. Yeah, and the son of Israel. But the genealogy, and this interesting, the genealogy is not to be recorded according to the birthright. In this case, because of what Reuben did, for Judah prevailed. Judah, who came from Judah? Do we know? Jesus, right? Judah prevailed above his brethren, and from him came the prince. Well, who's the prince? Jesus, yeah. But the birthright was Joseph's. Interesting, huh? How all that worked out. Well, of course we say, well, nothing like this would ever happen in the church, right? Remember the Corinthians? Nice little church. In Corinthians 5:2 it says something like this. Paul, he's disgusted as I am. It is reported commonly that there is fornication among you. Commonly. That there is fornication among you. And such fornication as is not so much as named among the Gentiles, that one should have his father's wife. And again, this probably isn't his mother, but it's his father's wife. And you are puffed up, and you have not rather mourned that he has done this deed, that he has done this might be taken away from you. They were puffed up. They were bragging about it. They were bragging about, listen, all this fornication is going around. We're doing all this stuff, but we don't care because we accept everybody. And that's what we're supposed to do, right? We're supposed to just accept everybody no matter what. And you know what Paul said? You know what he said after this? He said, as for my part, I've already thrown the guy out of the church. He's not a Christian. He's not a believer. That's what I do. I haven't even talked to him. I haven't even seen him. He's gone. Nowadays, doesn't matter. We just accept whatever. Who cares? Doesn't matter. It does matter. Sin always matters. Wrong always matters. But the church is going to continue to get weaker and weaker. And I say that because it's prophesied to do that. And anyway, that's God's law of marriage. Not a real fun topic, huh? It's a hard one because everyone has their opinion, including me, but not even my opinion matters. The only opinion that matters is God's opinion. And he told us what that is. So, anyway, any questions? All right, let's pray. Father, we just thank you for your word today and just pray that you'd help us to understand it, help us to live lives that are righteous and holy before you, that you may be glorified in our lives and everything we say and in everything we do. We pray for Dennis as he brings your message to us this morning, that you would speak through him to us and that you would be again lifted up and glorified here at Pine Grove Community Church. We pray in Jesus'